On the morning of my wedding, my parents arrived at my house with my fiancé, Yoseph Caldwell. Their expressions were serious, their words colder than the winter wind. "Your sister's terminally ill, and her only wish is to marry Yoseph," my mother said, as if discussing a minor inconvenience. "You're her younger sister, so be generous and help her out." Yoseph added in a calm, almost detached voice, "Don't worry. It's just a ceremony. Once she passes, you and I can still get the marriage certificate." When I refused, they tied me to a chair. "We'll let you out once the wedding's over," my father said. But they never did. Not long after they left, a masked intruder broke in. I watched in frozen horror as he approached, knife glinting in the dim light. My wrists were sliced open slowly, deliberately, my blood draining bit by bit. I tried to scream, but the towel my parents had gagged me with kept my voice locked inside. I was pregnant. That didn't save me either. By the time they remembered me, all that remained was my rotting corpse. My soul drifted above the scene, coldly watching the wedding that was supposed to be mine. At the venue, all eyes were fixed on the glowing bride at center stage, my sister, Sonia Quaid, wearing the gown that had been fitted for me. "Mia is finally happy now," my parents murmured tearfully from their seats, moved by their own generosity. The crowd cheered as the newlyweds shared their story, full of romantic encounters and deep affection. My name was never mentioned, as if I had never existed. The dress that once felt tight on me now hugged Sonia's figure perfectly. I floated above them, feeling the cold seep deeper into my being. From the start, I was never meant to marry Yosef. His distracted smiles during our wedding preparations now made sense. He was probably texting Sonia. What I couldn't understand was why they needed to use me as a sacrifice. Ever since we were children, my parents had favored Sonia. The snacks we both loved were always hers. The dress I wanted was bought for her instead. When there was only enough money for one of us to attend college, they paid her tuition and told me to work my way through school. But I never thought their bias would lead to this, forcing me to give up my fiancé because Sonia claimed she didn't have long to live. And Yosef, the man I'd been with since college, betrayed me without hesitation. The wedding ended perfectly in their eyes. They packed for their honeymoon, hand in hand, while I followed like a shadow. On the beaches of Anoli, bathed in golden sunlight, Yosef and Sonia strolled barefoot, sea breeze in their hair. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and they kissed passionately as passers-by clapped and cheered. Even my conservative parents stood by, smiling with pride. At that moment, no one remembered me, the one abandoned and murdered in a rented apartment. No one cared whether what they'd done to me was fair. "Yosef, do you think Freya is mad at me?" "She still hasn't called," Sonia asked weakly during their honeymoon, leaning into his arms like a fragile flower. "Of course not," he said softly. "You're her sister, and you're seriously ill. This was your only wish. She's not unreasonable. We'll make it up to her later." Sonia nodded, then brightened instantly, dragging Yosef and my parents out for an expensive seafood dinner. My parents couldn't fully enjoy the tens of thousands-dollar feast, but Sonia ate as though it were her birthright. Later that night, Yosef rejected Sonia's flirtatious attempt in their hotel room and went out to the balcony to smoke alone. I drifted to my parents' room. They sat on the bed, sighing over the dinner bill. My mother dialed my number, but it went straight to voicemail. Their faces darkened. In the past, every fight ended the same way. A slap, followed by a treat as their version of reconciliation. Calling me now was their way of offering me a way out. But this time, no one would ever answer. "David," my mother said, "with the way Mia spends money, she hasn't saved much. For retirement, we'll still have to rely on Freya." But she didn't pick up. "Do you think she's holding a grudge?" My father took a drag of a cigarette, then said coldly, "We're her parents. Since her sister isn't well, it's only right she gave way. What right does she have to be angry?" I watched them without emotion, only irony. In that moment, I felt oddly relieved to be dead. Half a month later, they returned from their honeymoon. Sonia lounged in my pajamas on the bed that was supposed to be mine, acting like the lady of the house. Yosef scanned the room, almost searching for traces of me, but found none. At the doorway to my study, he hesitated. "Yosef, I'm your wife now. I don't want another woman's things in our home," Sonia said sweetly, sliding her arms around him. "I bought new clothes. Let's turn this study into a walk-in closet." He gently moved her hands away. "Mia, Freya is still my wife. I only did this for your last wish. About the study, maybe." "No," She cut him off, eyes brimming with tears. I'm your rightful wife now. You're not allowed to have anyone else in your heart. In the end, Yosef agreed. Workers came to clear the room. Put that over there. Throw that out. That too. One by one, my belongings were removed while Yosef stood silently, watching. He knew this had been my biggest dream since childhood, to have a study of my own. Yosef knew how biased my parents were. He knew every slight I endured as a child, how desperately I'd wanted him to choose me without hesitation. Yet here he was, discarding me completely, so he could play savior to Sonia. The study, my sanctuary, my hard work, my dream, was dismantled piece by piece until it disappeared entirely, replaced by a glossy walk-in closet. Just like my life, it was swallowed by Sonia without a trace. Only one small photo of me remained in the corner. Yosef quietly picked it up, slipped it into his wallet, and said nothing. At work, an employee informed him I hadn't shown up for days and hadn't turned in any designs for an important project. His face darkened. He tried calling me repeatedly, but every call went unanswered. For the first time, he lost his temper in front of his employees, sweeping documents off his desk in a rage. By the end of the day, he'd fired me for unexplained absenteeism and appointed Sonia, who had never studied design, to take my place. It didn't take long before his restraint crumbled, and he gave in to Sonia's seduction at the office, their bodies tangled together on the desk and chair. I watched from the side, disgust twisting my stomach. I touched my belly instinctively. I was 1 month pregnant. I'd been planning to surprise him. But now, both my unborn child and I were gone. In the days that followed, Yosef flooded me with desperate messages, his tone soft and pleading, as if the thrill of betrayal had finally worn off. I never replied. Honey, what are you thinking about? Sonia's cheerful voice broke the moment. Her glowing skin and lively smile hardly matched the image of a dying woman. Yosef didn't seem to notice, or care. Flustered, he exited our chat and turned to hug her, but his eyes caught on the necklace around her neck. Isn't that Freya's necklace? Why do you have it? Oh, really? What a coincidence. I saw it online and bought it because I liked it. Yosef frowned. It was the necklace he'd given me in college, one I'd worn every day, without fail. Panic flashed in Sonia's eyes before she quickly changed the subject. Honey, we have to celebrate the pregnancy today. My parents are waiting for us. I reached for my bare neck. That necklace had been taken from me by my killer. Seeing it on Sonia made one thing clear. It wasn't a coincidence. Could my death be tied to her? At dinner, my parents fussed over Sonia, tearing up at the sight of her slightly thinner face. No one mentioned my absence. A sudden knock at the door made Yosef's head snap up. He rushed to answer it, certain it was me coming home to reconcile. Instead, it was my best friend, Rebecca South. She crossed her arms, eyes sharp as steel. Where's Freya? Rebecca had been my shield since childhood, blunt, fierce, and unafraid to confront anyone who hurt me. She's not here. If you're looking for her, try somewhere else, Sonia said quickly, moving to shut the door. Rebecca blocked it with one hand, shoved past both of them, and shouted, Fry? Are you home? Get out. That idiot isn't even here. Sonia screamed, lunging at her. They clashed violently until Yosef intervened, pushing Rebecca away to protect Sonia. The slap Rebecca delivered sent Yosef's head to the side, a vivid handprint blooming across his cheek. Yosef, have you no shame? You ditched Freya on her wedding day for Sonia. Freya loved you with her whole heart, and you repaid her with betrayal. You're both filth. And her parents, biased cowards. I hope karma eats you alive. If anything's happened to Freya, I'll drag every last one of you to prison. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, after coaxing Sonia to sleep, Yosef sat with my parents, worry creeping into his voice. Mom, Dad, Freya's been missing for days. Could something have happened? They kept their heads down. They knew the truth of their cruelty, but hoped I'd come home so they could pretend to make amends. They didn't know my body had been decomposing in that apartment, found only because the smell had seeped into the hallway. At dawn, Yosef's phone rang. Hello, is this a relative of Freya Quaid? She was found dead in a rented apartment a month ago. Please come to the station to identify the body. The word shattered him. His legs buckled, the phone hit the floor, and his mother's voice rose in panic. When she heard what he said, her hands gripped his collar. What are you talking about? What happened to Freya? Freya, she's dead. The family sped to the police station, clinging to the hope it was a mistake. Under the white sheet, a strand of my ash-brown hair peeked out. Yoseph's hands trembled as he lifted the cloth. My decomposed body lay beneath. Freya, Mommy was wrong. Please wake up, my mother sobbed, the cold air of the morgue echoing her wails. Regret came too late. Yoseph knelt beside me, wanting to touch my face, but there was no unmarked skin left. He slapped himself repeatedly, tears blurring his vision. Sonia lingered far from the table, her face twisted with irritation rather than grief. Yoseph, I'm scared. Let's go. This isn't good for the baby. If you're scared, wait outside, he said flatly.
No.
I want you to come with me, she whined, before breaking into insults, blaming me for making everyone sad, even in death. Get out. She's your sister. Don't you have any compassion? Yoseph roared, eyes bloodshot. For once, my parents didn't defend her. Sonia dropped to her knees, feigning illness, but no one cared anymore. A police officer's voice cut through the tension. The deceased was bound before death and died from blood loss after her wrists were cut. Do you know who tied her up? Officer, it was me, my father admitted. In the interrogation room, my mother confessed everything. She told the police she had tied me up at my wedding to fulfill Sonia's so-called dying wish. The story was so absurd that the officer stopped writing mid-sentence. Officer, I tied my own daughter. I was biased. I illegally detained her. That led to her dying alone in that apartment. It's all my fault. I'm a criminal. Her voice broke. She slapped herself repeatedly until she nearly fainted. Freya, I'm the murderer. I should pay for your life. The door burst open and Rebecca stormed in, documents in hand. Oscar Larkin leaked company secrets, and you helped him. The papers scattered across the table. This was the report I had asked her to investigate before I died. Sonia, before marrying Yosef, had a boyfriend, Oscar Larkin, a former employee at our company. I had found evidence he was leaking confidential technology to competitors, but I hadn't lived to see the results. What are you talking about? Oscar has nothing to do with this. Sonia snapped, her voice shaking. She tried to defend him, but each word only deepened suspicion. When she couldn't argue her way out, she raised her hand to strike Rebecca. Enough! Yosef stepped between them, his crimson eyes locked on Sonia. If you had a boyfriend, why ruin my wedding with Freya? Yosef, don't listen to her lies. Oscar and I broke up. I'm being framed. Rebecca's cold laugh cut through the air. She pulled a thick stack of photos from her bag. Pictures of Sonia and Oscar together, proof they'd met recently. Yosef, please believe me. Before she could say more, my mother's palm cracked across her face, sending her stumbling to the floor. In the days since, Sonia had grown restless. She'd hidden that necklace. Yosef had been cold to her, ignoring even the meals she cooked as an apology. Then came the final blow. The police told Yosef I had been carrying a fully formed child. His cries echoed through the station, his fists pounding the floor until they bled. My parents sobbed until they nearly collapsed. How bitterly ironic that the care I never received in life was poured onto me only in death. News of Oscar's arrest spread across the city. It turned out he was my killer. Soon after, the police came for Sonia. Oscar had confessed that she had ordered my death. She had loved him, but he was poor. To change that, she set her sights on my fiancé and our thriving company. The plan was simple: erase me from the world, marry Yosef, then divorce him to claim the assets and run away with Oscar. They staged my suicide.
But their scheme was sloppy.
Oscar assaulted me before killing me, leaving his DNA behind. And the crown jewel of her performance, Sonia's terminal cancer, had been fake from the start. She was let out in handcuffs, the crowd spitting and cursing at her. My parents could only stare at the daughter they once thought so sweet.
Mom, Dad.
Save me. I'm all you have left now. I can't die. Sonia dropped to her knees, trembling so badly she lost control of her bladder. My mother knelt and embraced her, then slapped her across the face again and again, repeating through sobs, "A life for a life." Suddenly, Sonia shoved her down and began laughing at the ceiling, eyes wild. She stroked her stomach with a smug smile. With this child, I won't die. My looks, my grades, my personality, wouldn't I have that was better than Freya's? Why did she get the perfect husband and the career? Why should I marry some broke man and live in poverty? As long as Freya was dead, I'd win. That night, My parents' hair seemed to turn white in a single breath. In months, they had lost one daughter to death and another to prison. My mother cried until she damaged her eyes, her mind unraveling as she whispered apologies to me over and over. Autumn rain fell in fine threads. The wind carried a chill, and even the grass bent under the weight of dew. My parents dressed in black and made the final preparations. Today was my funeral. The memorial hall was draped in white. Friends and relatives arrived with flowers. Yoseph appeared for the first time in weeks, thinner, hollow-eyed, hair a mess. He lit cigarette after cigarette, unable to look at my urn. Regret bled from him, regret for helping Sonia with her dying wish, for betraying me, for letting everything rot until only death separated us. Someone cursed him from behind. He didn't flinch. In his own mind, every insult was deserved. While everyone was caught up in their own affairs, in a quiet corner, a shadow slipped by unnoticed. She moved swiftly, lifting the urn from the stage. Outside, the rain still fell, but the urn was held tightly in her arms as though she feared a single drop might touch it. It was Rebecca. She hadn't been doing well either. The dark circles under her eyes, the weariness etched into her face, and the dullness in her once bright gaze spoke volumes. The little ray of sunshine who used to laugh easily and talk endlessly could no longer smile. We walked silently down the road, just as we had in our childhood when we'd sneak away to play. "Freya, do you remember?" she began softly. "When we were little, my dad got drunk and beat me so badly I couldn't get out of bed. He locked me upstairs without food or water. When you found out, you brought a ladder and climbed up step by step to rescue me. You were so small then and afraid of heights, but you still came. My mom knew I was locked up, knew I was half dead, but the one who saved me was you. After you pulled me out, you used the pocket money you'd saved for so long to buy me a bowl of wontons. We shared them, and they were the most delicious wontons I've ever had." She smiled at the memory, but I saw the tears gathering in her eyes. I wanted to brush them away, but my hand passed through her like mist. Love can do so much, yet there are things even love cannot achieve. If I had known things would end like this, I would have spent more time with her. After all, she was the only one who loved me unconditionally, who always treated me well. Rebecca's fingers traced the urn surface. A single warm tear fell onto it, sinking into my heart, heavy and aching. "Freya, you once rescued me from that hellish home. Now, I'm here to rescue you. Could you spend more time with me in my dreams? Living alone is so lonely. I wish it had been me who died instead. You're so outstanding, so gentle, you deserved so much more." Tears kept falling. She stopped walking, looking like a lost child, someone saved once, only to be abandoned again. She stood at the crossroads, directionless. I stood beside her, stroking her hair again and again. "I'm sorry, Ranran. I broke my promise. I didn't find love and I failed you too."
Child.
"Sweet child. Please give Freya back to us. I'm begging you." Behind us, Mom, Dad, and Joseph appeared, panting from the chase. My mother dropped to her knees, frantically pleading for Rebecca to return the urn. Rebecca clutched it tighter, her eyes sharp with fury. "You want me to give Freya back? In your dreams. Your cruelty and favoritism drove her to leave this world. Sonia and Oscar may have been the final blow, but you, her parents, were worse. Freya wouldn't want to go back with you. A betraying fiancé, biased parents, why don't you all just disappear?" Her words stunned them into silence. The thin girl in black turned and walked away with my urn. This time, no one followed. "Wave your hands, waddle along, board the foreign ship, sail to Hankow, buy rock candy, give to friends." The rain faded, and sunlight spilled across the earth. Rebecca's voice carried the nursery rhyme we once sang as children. Her steps quickened, the wind catching her hair and carrying the faint scent of freedom. I was buried beneath the magnolia tree Rebecca, and I had loved as children. Spring had returned, the air fresh and alive, and pale buds were pushing through the branches. Rebecca arrived early, wearing my favorite white dress. She sat on the grass with a cake, keeping me company. I leaned against her in spirit, closing my eyes to savor her presence. She still carried that faint scent of laundry soap, clean and comforting. Sensing me, she began to talk softly. She told me about the troubles and small joys in her life, and even news about my family. From her, I learned Sonia and Oscar were now in prison. The child Sonia had given birth to was left with Yoseph, but the paternity test revealed he wasn't the father. Yosef's company had gone bankrupt, and he now drifted through life in a daze. Rebecca smiled faintly, as if she had begun to step out from the shadow of losing me. "Rebecca, you're here so early," a voice called. My parents and Yosef arrived late, carrying cake and pastries, things they once bought in secret for Sonia. Now they placed them in front of my headstone, but I felt neither surprise nor gratitude. Rebecca lay back in the grass, chewing a blade of foxtail. "Not easy, really not easy," she teased, her tone edged. "You actually remembered Freya's birthday. I thought your heads only stored files on Sonia." The three of them bowed their heads in silence. Seeing them, Rebecca began packing her things. My family stayed, laying out their offerings before me. My mother's eyes, swollen from years of tears, were now completely blind. They walked with hunched backs, their steps unsteady. Yosef, who should have been in his prime, had a head full of white hair, worn down by loss. They spoke to me, my mother crying again until they had to help her away. Before leaving, they arranged mango popsicles, pretty dresses, and a beach photo where they had edited me in. Even the necklace I had loved as a child lay there. So they had known all along what I liked, what hurt me, and yet they had turned away, pretending not to see. Rebecca's voice broke the silence. "Freya, Sonia's getting her comeuppance. She faked cancer once, and now she really has it. The chemo has taken all her hair. She won't live much longer. And Oscar, he's been executed." I don't know how long I had been beneath the magnolia tree. Rebecca came almost every week. Fine lines began to appear on her face, but she remained single. I sat quietly in the shade, drifting with the wind when it blew, returning to my place when it passed. That was my only entertainment. One day she arrived with a man, her husband. She told me she was moving far away and wouldn't be able to visit weekly. I floated to the branches and shook loose a blooming magnolia flower. It landed in her hands. Magnolia petals dance in gentle breeze, just like dear friends who stay with me. She gazed at the flower, her tears softening into a smile. She left with my blessing. Her visits became once a year, at Christmas. When she came again, there was a child walking beside her. I felt a quiet joy. The girl who had once been trapped in a cruel home now lived a good life, with a family of her own. Years passed. Rebecca told me Yosef had died, jumping from the 30th floor after Oscar's parents took the boy he had raised. My parents had both died of illness. Sonia was long gone. Life had come full circle, and one by one they had all left me. Rebecca's child grew tall. When they greeted me, the magnolia's branches would sway gently in reply. With time, my soul grew faint. I could no longer control my movements. "Rebecca. Goodbye, Rebecca. Goodbye, little one." I called, my voice almost a whisper on the wind. Rebecca looked up, tears bright in her eyes. She waved. "Freya, goodbye. In our next life, let's be sisters again." Yosef's POV. I loved Freya, yet now that love feels like a cruel joke I played on both of us. Before the wedding, Sonia came with her parents, kneeling before me with tears in her eyes. She claimed marrying her would be her dying wish, her last request. They praised me as generous, decisive, the kind of man who could make noble sacrifices. They swore Freya would understand. In a moment of weakness, I agreed. I forgot that Freya had been sacrificing for others her entire life, that she too deserved to be chosen, to be cherished. I forgot the pain in her voice when she told me how her family always favored Sonia, how she had always been treated as second best. And, in that moment, I became just like them. On our so-called honeymoon, Sonia clung to me, initiating kisses and touches. But no matter how warm the sun or how beautiful the sea, I felt cold. I thought I saw Freya's shadow in the crowd once, and from then on, everything tasted like ash. I decided I would apologize to her the moment I returned home. But when I opened the door to an empty house, I told myself she was only angry, waiting for me to beg for her forgiveness like before. Days passed without a word. I never imagined she would die. Never thought my girlfriend of 7 years would truly be gone. When the police called, I prayed they were wrong. But the moment I saw that strand of her hair, my heart turned to stone. The cold, lifeless body in the morgue drawer was my Freya. When I left, she had been full of life. When I saw her again, she was a corpse. And then came the final blow. The police told me she had been pregnant. In that instant, I wished it had been me instead. Not long after, Oscar and Sonia were arrested. That was when I learned Sonia's cancer had been a lie. Her desire to kill Freya had been the only truth. She had used her pregnancy as an excuse to hide in the hospital under police protection. I tried to kill her myself, but they stopped me and detained me for months. That autumn, on Freya's birthday, I stood before her grave and asked myself over and over, if I had refused Sonia's request, would I be holding my child in my arms right now? Would Freya still be smiling beside me? Would we have gone on the beach trip she dreamed about? The Yoseph who had once loved Freya above all else had died with her in that tiny apartment we once called home. The man who remained disgusted me. The company went bankrupt. I lived like a ghost, wishing for death every day. But Freya's parents were still alive, and I couldn't abandon them after failing their daughter. When they passed away, one after another, the only reminder of this wretched story was Sonia's child, taken in by strangers, carrying blood that will always remind me of betrayal. Now, I exist only to remember and to atone, though no amount of atonement will ever be enough.